I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes to avoid when doing a rent-to-own. And then at the very end, I'm actually going to give you a little bonus. I'm going to give you the biggest tip to protect your investment in your rent-to-own property. So let's take you through that really quick. The first mistake that you want to avoid when doing a rent-to-own is to make sure that the price point for the home that you're getting into is going to be something that you're going to actually be able to qualify for when it comes time to actually purchase. And you have to be very careful, and especially in today's market, you can get misled. And here's what I mean. Let's say you were to pick up a rent-to-own today that only costs you $2,000 a month to be able to rent. And then, of course, in a few years, you'll buy it using traditional financing. Well, let's say that property is $2,000 a month, but when you go to purchase it, if the property is $2,500 a month and you don't qualify for a loan at $2,500 a month for your housing payment, then it didn't matter that you were on a rent-to-own because you'll never be able to buy it. Does that make sense? So if you're renting for $2,000 today, but your final payment when you go to actually get a loan is at $2,500, you've got a gap, and you just want to make sure that you qualify at the future rate of what your payments will be. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Right now, today's rates are so incredibly low. They're at an all-time low. So if you use today's mortgage rates and say, oh gosh, yeah, if I got this house today, it would only cost me $2,000 a month or $1,950 or maybe $2,100 if I actually got the financing for it. You cannot use today's interest rates to try to figure out what it will cost you 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So you want to make sure that you look at it and get a good idea of what rates might be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and make sure that the payment in the future is going to be something that you qualify for. The second tip is you want to make sure that you're actually going to qualify for your home in the time frame of your purchase option contract. I mean, here's what that means. You're going to rent for 2 or 3 years, and you're going to have the ability to be able to purchase that property at any time up until maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now. You want to make sure that what's ever holding you back from being able to buy today will be solved at the end of that time period. So let's say you did a 2-year rent-to-own contract. You want to make sure in 2 years you're actually going to be ready to buy. This means if you just started a new business and you're not qualified to buy a home yet today because you don't have 2 years of history, don't get into a 1-year or even 2-year rent-to-own agreement. Make sure you give yourself at least 2.5, 3 years, or even 4 years. The other thing is if you're rebuilding your credit, don't underestimate what it can take to rebuild your credit. Do what you can to make sure that the time frame of your agreement actually matches what you can do. The third mistake that so many people make when doing a rent-to-own is they start pinching pennies on their rent-to-own agreement as they're working out with the landlord or seller, and they're complaining potentially about, well, I'm overpaying for rent on this property. Well, for example, rental for the unit might normally be $1,500, but the seller that's doing a rent-to-own with you wants $1,600 or $1,650 for the property. You will miss out on a ton of perfect homes for yourself if you go in the mindset that I shouldn't be paying any more than what market rent is. Remember, the purpose of a rent-to-own is to get you into home ownership today so that you can actually start owning today even though you're not buying it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That means you should expect to pay a premium on your home. So instead of $1,500, it might cost you $1,600 or $1,650. Now, a secret that you can do is make sure that if you're paying $1,650, try to get part of that as a credit back towards the purchase. So if you purchase the property, $100 or $150 of that might actually go towards the purchase. And same thing on the purchase price for the home. If there's a property that you're able to get into and it is below market asking today, don't expect that you're going to get that below market price, because that's how whoever might be renting the home to you for the future purchase, that's how they're going to make this deal work for you. Example, $300,000 home is now asking $275,000. Don't expect that you're getting the property for $275,000. You should expect you're getting it for $300,000 or $305,000 or $310,000 or future value, but you're locking it in today, and that's The beauty of this, though, is that you are actually locking in that home, and that's the purpose of doing the rent-to-own. So don't try to pinch every penny in the deal, or you may never find yourself a rent-to-own property. Now, I promised you I was going to give you the biggest tip to protect your investment in the home. So here's what you want to do. You've avoided the 3 mistakes. When you actually go and set up your rent-to-own contract, you want to make sure that your purchase price at the end of the term, call it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, doesn't matter, whatever you've agreed to, you want to make sure that that purchase price appraises at the market value, at value when you go to buy it at that time. So here's what I mean. If you agreed to buy a home in 3 years from now for $300,000, you should make sure in the contract that if it doesn't appraise for $300,000, it's not worth that much. Maybe the market drops, who knows? As long as it's not due to your neglect that it's not worth $300,000, you should be able to renegotiate the terms of your contract. This is going to protect you from getting into a property and getting an overinflated purchase price on a home, and then when you go to buy it, you're like, wait a minute, I'm upside down in this home. The goal is never to be upside down into your property. You don't want to be in pay $300,000 for a home that's only worth $280,000. That's not the goal of this. The goal is to always make sure that you're on a path to home ownership, but don't get caught by ending up getting at the end of the term, and now it doesn't appraise, and you've lost everything you've spent your time on for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that's the biggest tip that you can do to protect your investment in your rent-to-own property. Now, coming up next, I'm going to show you why it's better to actually rent-to-own a property than actually buy it outright. This is what most experts don't tell you, but we here at NextGen REI want you to know. So make sure you watch that video, right? And if you like the content that you're learning here, make sure you subscribe so you get notified when we publish even more content that we know you're going to love. Thanks for watching today. Cannot wait to see you on the next video.